Good afternoon. Welcome to Cycle for Entrepreneurs, a 10-session program that addresses all aspects of entrepreneurship. I'm Rocío Álvarez Osorio. I'm a lawyer specialized in advising startups in Baker Tilly. And today I will be the moderator. And so with these sessions, I take this opportunity to extend a cordial greeting to all those who are joining for the first time, and specialize to those who are seeing this cycle from different parts of the world. As you know, the Cycle for Entrepreneurs is an initiative promoted by the Alumni Association and a new project of this school that offer 5 large areas of services to students and alumni in training and knowledge, professional development, networking, benefits, and discounts. Customer discovery, find products for your customer, is the 4th module of the cycle and will focus on the following topics: to understand the market, to know the client segment, the map of empathy, the GOTB principle, and to cover the hypothesis validation methodologies. To talk about this topic, we have the presence of Álvaro Cuesta. Álvaro is the co-founder of Sonar Ventures, the first Spanish startup producer. It's a company that is dedicated to advise, accompany, and launch new projects of proven success in the international field. Álvaro is also a consultant and expositor in different companies and institutions in topics of digital strategy and entrepreneurship. Also, he was president of the Young Entrepreneurs Association of Madrid and the Young Council CEIM. Before giving the word to Álvaro, I invite you to participate in this session and ask your questions through Twitter using the hashtag to appear on your screen. Again, and welcome, Álvaro.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. And first of all, I should apologize because I was late. I'm told that you were told in advance, but I wanted to make sure because there was a lot of traffic on the road, especially today. So in any case, welcome to this 4th session. Once again, I really hope we can try to make it a conversation, not just like a full speech for an hour and 50 minutes that it will be like incredibly boring no matter what I do. I can dance here or whatever, but if it's just me, it will be boring and it will not be so interactive. In any case, I will try to explain the topics for today, focusing on what it's called customer discovery. And you know that this specific module is part of the whole program on basically how to start a successful company, and especially a successful startup, how to become successful entrepreneurs. And by that means, not just successful as getting rich and making money. Otherwise, I mean, it would be stupid for me and pretentious to tell you the tools. No one has the tools. But at least to do it, to lower and to minimize the risks of becoming an entrepreneur, to enjoy the ride, to have fun while doing it, to use the methodologies that other people have already proven with their own failures and their own successes to apply, so we can once again minimize that risk, and try to align basically your personal motivations, passions, purpose with the value proposition and your actual business. That to me is the definition of success. Just getting up in the morning and do what you love and do without suffering it too much, right? So after that, we've been covering different topics. We've gone from the essence of entrepreneurship, from the purpose, what we call the golden circle, the why, and then the how, and then the what. So starting companies from their purpose, not just from the pure idea, because we've discussed that ideas are important, but in the end, if you change the idea because the market is not answering as you expected, then what do? You stick to that and no matter what, or you give up quickly? So if you want to align and change that idea to what the market and the different KPIs are telling you, basically you should be aligned with your purpose. That's why it's good to be anchored in a purpose rather than an idea. Right? So once we've covered all those topics, we've discussed about the team and the different aspects about the team. it's almost a cliche to say that the most important aspect in a project is the team. But in this case, in terms of startups, is critical. And we've covered all the topics on the different archetypes, how to choose the right co-founder, and all those things. Then we've discussed about company culture. We've discussed not just the team itself, but the culture as a whole, as an intangible asset of the company that makes the whole difference, when becoming successful or not. And we've also discussed briefly the methodologies on what we call Lean Startup. Lean Startup methodologies were created by a guy named Eric Ries. He basically tried to, as I was telling you, minimize the risks with low resources, high uncertainty, and a lot of changing environments, right? And small teams, and that Lean Startup methodology is the one that we'll be focusing today and the next session. But a parallel methodology that it reinforces or retrofeeds the Lean Startup methodology is what is called customer development. Customer development was also developed by a guy named Steve Blank. He wrote many books about it. One of them is called 4 Steps to Epiphany, and I really recommend it to you. And basically it's telling you what we're going to discuss today. Stop about thinking about the idea. Stop thinking about the product. The product is not that important. What is important is the problem that you're trying to solve. Once you find the right problem and you find the right segment and the right client, type of client to solve that problem, then you start creating a solution. But the solution at the beginning might not be the right one. If you found the right problem, then you just go and find another one, and that's not a big deal. If you have the right methodologies, you're not dead yet because you spend all your money building that product, right? So the idea is, I think your chances of success will be much higher if you have, I know it sounds obvious, but sometimes obvious things are, the really forgotten ones on our daily basis. The key here is how to last as much as possible, how to be alive as long as possible, in order to find what they call the product market fit, the sense that your product and the market they merge, they like each other, and then you have a sustainable business model and then a scalable business model to make a profit out of it. But in order to find that product market fit, you need to make sure to know who is your right customer. So we'll try to find the experiments to do so, to really understand that customer, the customer needs, the customer's problem that you're trying to solve, and then to develop the product. That we will discuss on further sessions. And then we'll see how make it grow, okay? But for the moment, let's just try to get to the product market fit stage. And let me tell you, if you get there, I mean, the rest is I'm not saying easy, but the rest is much easier than getting to that point. There are many projects in my life, many startups that I've built where I just couldn't reach even that phase, that product market fit. So as part of this customer development methodology, one of the main stages of that methodology is the customer discovery stage, and this is the one we're focusing today. What is customer discovery? Well, as opposed to the next stage, which is customer validation, the customer discovery is the time in your development of the startup where you try to really make sure that you validate and you really understand the problem you're trying to solve, and you find the right segment. Once you do that, then you build an MVP, a minimum viable product, and then with that product, we'll see that after, you will try to validate, you will go to the next stage, you will go to the customer validation to make sure that your solution is the right solution for the problem you've validated with for the customer segment that you've already found. I don't know if it's clear, or is it?
Yes, it is clear. But I would like to ask you
Sure.
about. You are talking about when you find a solution in order to cover a necessity of the customer.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about when you create the necessity of the customer?
Well, it's actually very good question, because sometimes let me put it this way. Henry Ford said, if I asked the customer what he wants, he would have told me that he wanted faster horses, right? So sometimes you need to go one step beyond. But that is another type of innovation that is called a disruptive innovation, when you're not just solving a problem, not just answering to a problem, but actually creating a new one. Now, when you create a new problem, the reality is that there's no such thing as creating a new problem, apart from very, very specific exceptions. As for example, antivirus developers do with when they develop the virus and then they sell the antivirus, right? Or even the pharmaceutical companies, that we could argue a lot about that. But what you're trying to do is, the problem is always there. The customer is always there. What you're developing is a new solution. It's a solution that has never been created before. So that is part of our task or our challenge as entrepreneurs and innovation, to develop a new product, to come out with a new hypothesis. But in the end, the problem remains there. It has to be there. If you're not really solving a problem, then you will have very short chances of success. It used to be different before. Sometimes you were selling things that were not actually solving a real problem, but that had to be done with a lot of marketing, a lot of publicity, a lot of advertisement, and that required a lot of money. And in the end, that is not possible anymore. The customer is much more intelligent, has many options. The information is more transparent. So unless you're really solving a real problem, and by that I mean also not just solving a new problem that has never been solved before. Most problems in the world are already solved. Or at least being solved in a way. But what is good about innovation and entrepreneurship is that the problem can be solved in a much better way, and more convenient, more affordable, more efficient, and that's what we need to find. Is that now?
Yes.
Is that answering your question? Excellent, great. So that's the customer discovery introduction. These are the main topics we will see today. First, know your customer segment. We will discuss about that. We will discuss about this empathy map as one of the tools that you can use to get to know your customers. I will be a little bit politically incorrect here today. Well, I like normally to be politically incorrect if I have to, not just for the sake of it. But probably telling you things that in the MBA or the masters you've studied are contradictory, okay? As for example, my students get a bit shocked when I tell them that I don't believe in market studies, okay? Because they ask you to do so all the time when you do your final plan or your business plan or whatever. They want you to be supported by, market research. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I think I've developed enough companies to know that the customer, when you ask them what they need, even in a survey, they lie. Either because they consciously lie, or because they really are not in the mood to give you a realistic answer about your question. Let me take that to the extreme. I recommend you a book that I found, two books. One of them is a bit more scientific and more dense to read, that it's called Blink. I really recommend you this book, Blink, and it talks about a lot about why focus groups and market research is not working from a scientific point of view, and why, and it tells you many examples of why, for example, the designers of certain chairs that are now the most successful in the market, After the market research they did, no one liked them. So according to that information, they shouldn't have launched them. But eventually, after a certain time, people loved them, and nothing changed. I mean, the product was the same, the segment was the same. It was just a matter of how you made the questions, how you conducted the market research, and many other aspects, right? So this is called Blink, the one book, and the other book is called The Paradox of Choice. It says, basically the headline of the book is Why Sometimes More is Less, okay? And the paradox of choice gives you a very good example of a survey that was conducted by scientists to ask them whether, in case you had a disease like cancer, if you actually would like to choose your own treatment. Okay, that was a market research. 72% of the people, they say they wanted to choose their own treatment. Okay, they conducted the same survey to the people that actually had cancer, and it was 12% of the people that actually wanted to choose their own treatment. By that, I mean that when you ask someone or a specific market about a hypothetical question, the answer that the market is giving you has nothing to do with the reality.
No, obviously.
So that's why I'm a bit against, well, actually customer development methodology, not just me, is against that methodology. It's a change of paradigm. Basically what we need to do as entrepreneurs is don't conduct surveys on, or send them on WhatsApp or on Facebook or to your friends or just hire a company. Just get out of the building. We will see that as the third principle. Go and talk to them, have interviews, invite them for coffees if once you find the right customer segment. And after a whole interaction, emotional interaction, you get to really know what the people are telling you, not with questions and answers and multiple choice and Gartner reports, because those might be helpful to convince investors. But I would never bet my company or my product or my idea on those results. I would just conduct interviews, like personal interviews, and that with the certain methodologies. Otherwise, you will be fooling yourself. Basically, in Spain, we have a saying that's called "you're cheating yourself at the solitary game." Right? It's like what's the point of fooling yourself? Asking people questions to answer what you already want them to answer. It doesn't make sense. You want them to answer questions so that you can really get feedback to really develop something they really might want, even if they don't know it. But that's what you need to do. So that's part of this customer discovery methodology. And this example of the patients is a bit extreme, but it's just to make you understand the gap between, or the huge difference between what the people tell you to vote or to choose and what they finally do. I was actually thinking about voting because the Trump example also came to my mind. If we had listened to the surveys about people that were going to vote for Trump and the people that actually ended up voting, then I would tell you that follow surveys, but they're never right. So anyway, and the last part we're going to cover is methodologies specifically for this validation hypothesis. Now, let's review our methodology. There's something very important that we've seen in the previous modules, that it was called Lean Startup Methodology. That Lean Startup Methodology is, just to have a refreshment, is a learning strategy to build a sustainable business, and this learning can be validated scientifically by running experiments that allow the entrepreneur to test the viability of their vision. Well, it's a very good definition of this methodology. It's not mine. But what I want you to remember is that whatever we do, we need to be scientists about it. We need to be, we don't have to, follow our intuition to be entrepreneurs. Of course, intuition sometimes is necessary, but what I call scientific intuition, which means I gather all the data, and then my subconscious cooks the data and then tells me a hypothesis or a solution based on that intuition. But most of the time, what we need to do is just state hypothesis, run experiments to test that hypothesis, and based on those results, validate those hypotheses or reframe the hypothesis until you really validate it. And that's the whole thing about lean startup and customer development. Just always keep that in mind. So what is the main hypothesis that we need to validate? Well, sometimes we go too fast and assume that we're trying to solve a problem that in the end is not really a problem. And I've seen that many times. Even for, there are many solutions that I see that I tell the entrepreneur, this is not a solution for a problem, it's a problem in search for a solution. So you're trying to, it's a solution in search of for a problem, which doesn't make sense, right? It's stupid to develop something and then see what problem is solving. First you need to make sure you're really solving a problem and then come up with a solution. That's the take on lean startup and customer development. So the first thing you need to do about customer validation and customer discovery specifically, is to frame the right hypothesis about the problem, to validate your problem hypothesis. Let me give you a real example. Imagine one of the companies that I started, okay? It was called Sitters, as babysitters. Mm-hmm. And it was like an Uber for nannies, for babysitters, basically for parents that needed, had kids and, you needed to go somewhere else or to go to work and you needed to hire a babysitter and you could do it on the internet, okay? Well, at a specific point, I thought I was trying to solve a problem that it was like the problem in Spain. Of course, in other markets, the problem really exists, okay? But in Spain, I was trying to solve the problem of the immediate need of a nanny. Like, I need to get out, to go out with my husband or with my wife, and I have no one to leave the kids with, okay? Okay, that's a universal problem, but maybe it makes a whole difference whether that is the problem or whether you need a nanny for your daily basis or whether you need a person to take care of your kids or to take care of your kids and clean the house. The definition of the problem makes a whole difference on the solution that you end up coming with, right? And the market itself is also very, very different. So at the beginning, we started creating an Uber for nannies. Like, I need a nanny on the go, and you could just hire and would come to your place and you could go out for dinner and leave your kids at home. In Spain, it's not working. I tried it, doesn't work. In the United States, it's mainstream. Because people trust. It's a matter of trust.
Yes.
Who they leave their kids with.
Yes.
I'm a parent, and
yes.
I know that it gives a bit of vertigo, like uncertainty. To leave your kids with someone like a stranger and hire that on the internet and pay with a credit card and just go home and go to the theater and forget about it, because so in the end it's not a real problem in Spain because people have a certain family networks and certain relationships that in the end you leave the kid with a neighbor, with your mother, with your father, with your cousin. There's such a trust network that, in some cases you have that problem, but it's not a big of a problem. So why try to develop something that just because it's working in the United States, you're trying to develop it here? In the end, what you need to really validate is that problem really exists. And if you ask 10, 15 people that match or that fit into that category, and they tell you, hey, I'm sorry, no matter what solution you give me, I have no problem with that because every time I go to the movies, my mom lives close from here, so I just tell her to come home and that's it. So why find that solution? In the United States, it's different because the migration is so different that kids leave their home when they go for college and they almost never go back unless they go for Thanksgiving and Christmas time, right? It's different because you are from Memphis and you end up living in New York. So your network is non-existent. You have no one to leave the kids with, right? So that is a real problem for both specific and structural situations, not in Spain. So that is one example of a mistake I did as an entrepreneur by not validating the hypothesis that the problem I was trying to solve was a real problem. Okay, so let's try to see how to validate that problem. Well, in order to validate that problem, here you can see on the screen that these are the elements of Lean Startup, just for you to remember: the customer development, the uncertainty, the MVP, and this build, measure, learn loop that I was referring to before. The whole, I create a hypothesis, so I build a product or a certain feature. I measure the results because I conduct the experiment, and then I learn from the results, and that's a whole loop. Okay, so this is the customer development, most influential person, Steve Blank. He says most startups fail not because they lack of product, but because they lack of customers. And it might sound obvious, but if you saw how many people I've talked with, I invested or pretended to invest with, or the juries of the contests of entrepreneurs and startups that I've been part of, and the projects I've seen, where they had great products but they were not selling anything, because technologically speaking were great products, but there was no market for them, because in the end they were not solving a real problem. So it's very common to stick to an idea just because you had it, like a happy idea, but you're not just validating your previous hypothesis that you're really solving a problem, right? So that's just because you think you have it, it doesn't mean that the problem is there.
So before, you said that before to invest in the product, you have to test your idea with the market.
Exactly, and not just the idea, but the problem you're trying to solve with that idea.
Okay. Yeah,
because the idea might be a solution, but you might go one step ahead of what you should do. And it's normal, of course. I mean, most people think of specific ideas, like wouldn't it be great to do this, that would do that, and that's like sometimes one way of logical reasoning. But others, and most successful companies, what they do is they come from people that suffered a problem, they came up with a solution, and they thought, why has not anyone thought about this before? And then they try to implement it. Well, sometimes that works, because that problem that they had is a problem that most people had, or certain people had. But they forgot sometimes to go to these people and say, did you already have that problem? Are you sure? I mean, in which circumstances, in which context? What are the ways that you are trying to solve your problem that I might not heard of, to see if my solution it's better than the other alternatives that are out there. So that's why before going to for the solution, we need to state the problem, and make sure that we need to validate it. And that's why then you will have more chances of having more customers. Okay, you got just two testimonials that I think were very interesting to reflect what I'm telling you. Is that this guy, for example, says, when I was in the moment of creating a new idea, I started building it as if I had it in my mind, or as a team imagined. That's the most common thing. Then we tested it with friends or family. Very wrong. We released the app, but never got close to real customers. That's the most common thing. Okay, your mom, she will always tell you that it's a great idea. Your friends, of course, same thing. So just test it with real customers. After 11 months developing the software without talking to anybody, I decided to show it to my closest friends and ask them to use it. Guess what? Nobody wanted. So even to the friends, I mean, not to mention the customers, So it might seem stupid. You might think, oh no, that's so obvious, But let me tell you, 95% of the entrepreneurs that I've met, they just start building without validating all the previous hypotheses before.
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you contact with your potential customer?
Okay.
Like a call, or like a...
like an interview, or like a... Well, the first thing is you need to first understand who is your potential customer. So that's why we're going to see how to come up with the ideal type of customer that we need to find. Okay, that it's called what we call the early adopter. Okay, once we found that, we need to see where we could find those early adopters. It depends, of course, on the problem we're trying to solve. If we're trying to solve a problem for parents that have kids, best way is to go to the door of a school and just
to talk with the
wait outside and say, hey, we're conducting a study, we're trying to develop a new product, and we need parents to help us with so that you can, would you mind if I invite you for a coffee now or some other day? And that, all the kids at school or people you already know that fit into that profile. Sometimes the type of customer is very specific, and it's better to find other ways, like even Facebook ads. Sometimes it's good to develop an ad to try to make people go to a landing page and then fill the data with their phone number and then call them and discuss about it. Okay, so Facebook is a great tool to segment those people, because you can find them on location, age, gender, things that they like, so that you can cluster the profile and then say, okay, so before launching my product, I'm going to make an ad saying, the problem I'm trying to solve, or something that will make them click on it. I will give them what I call a freebie, something for free that it's engaging enough for them to give them their information, and then try to call them. Most of the time, most people I know, they end up solving problems for people or segments that are within their environment. So whether it's millennials, women, middle-aged women, middle-aged men, old people, kids, whatever, it's always somehow easy to find either on your environment or on the street, or friends of friends. So once again, I think for each customer segment there is a specific way. But the best thing is never just call, always have this human interaction, because it will give you the better hint.
Yeah, the feeling.
Exactly,
yes,
emotional feeling and everything. Okay, so here's another way to put it. Most people start on the solution, and then it's better to start there, customer and problem. Okay, we've seen that. Now, why is also interesting, this customer development approach? Because normally you can see there from the product view, you can see the entrepreneur also passionate and obsessed with the idea, with the solution, with the product, hasn't even thought about the problem it's solving. He thinks about, or she thinks about the problem, but doesn't really care, because it's just based on his or her own personal experience, right? But then you consider customers, friends, investors. The investor has no emotions. The friends are, of course they have emotion on a personal level, but not towards your product. They're professionals. The friends, they're way too global. They're too dispersed, unless all of them they fit into your customer segment category. So and the customers, the final customers, are way too far away. Are difficult to find, at certain times. So that's why it's better to just go out of the building and find those people and interact with them and have a human connection with them and try to get their feedback. Okay. Steve Jobs also says you got to start with the customer experience, customer discovery in this case, and go and work backward to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out whether you're going to sell it, which once again is the same issue we're discussing. Some mistakes will be made along the way. That's good, because at least some decisions are being made along the way, and we'll find the mistakes and we'll fix them. Okay, so that's another way to reinforce this thing, this concept. Now, understanding customer discovery and customer development. These are 7 steps that you can conduct in order to do this thing. This is not just a paradigm. This is not just an idea or a general concept. This is a specific methodology that I recommend you to follow, because the methodology, once again, in science, and remember that we are half scientists as entrepreneurs, half artists, half scientists, half passion, half data. Okay. The first thing you need to do is, once you think that you have this hypothesis that people have a problem. For example, I have the problem that people don't have time to cook at home. Okay, that's my hypothesis. That's why I developed my startup, foodinthebox.com. Okay, so I have this hypothesis: people don't have time nor knowledge or skills to cook at home. So the first thing I do is I define a customer persona. When I mean people, what do I mean for people? Is it just me? Or who else? Is it, house or homemakers, housewives, homemakers, people that, or house husbands that work at home and take care of the kids in the house? Probably not, because they have more time to do that. Actually, it's not a it's not a critical thing, because it's part of the chores, the chores that they do. Is it people that is it like students? Is it like old people that don't have time? No, because maybe they do have time. Maybe they're already retired, so they already have the time to cook. So who is this specific segment that normally should cook but doesn't have the time to do it? And by that, you need to really frame the problem, because is it just the cooking time? Is it just like assuming that you already have all the groceries at your place and then it's just about cooking? Because maybe that's not such a pain. Maybe the pain is planning your meals ahead, then going to the groceries or just to the grocery stores or just buy it online, then being home to receive those groceries and then cook them and then wash the dishes and then all those things, So you need to understand the problem you're trying to solve. It's a huge difference. Is it about cooking at home for dinner, or is the problem for lunchtime? Because then most people have just a salad or a menu along across the street or pre-cooked meal that they can even get at their place, right? So you need to understand, is it a problem to make breakfast, to make lunch? So understand the problem, define the persona. The persona, let's say that we've focused on a persona that we call DINKs, the double income no kids, the couples that have no kids and they both work and they arrive home late and they just don't have time for that. So they finally order pizza or buy whatever they have, near the street or whatever. So that's one customer persona. Another customer persona could be, in this case, singles, divorced parents, young professionals that live by themselves, don't share an apartment, or basically just single people. And another one is families, people that, they're working parents. It's either the father or the mother that takes care of the cooking. Normally it's one of them, of those. But they have no time to plan the meals they want to cook for the kids, because it's a pain for them. I mean, considering all the restrictions, the tastes, they don't want to repeat dishes all the time and whatever. So they would not cook for themselves because they don't care, too much. They can just do some scrambled eggs and do something quick, but they need to cook something for the kids. They don't want to feed them with pizza all the time, right? So those are three customer segments, and the solutions for those segments might be completely different. So you need to focus on one of them. So that is why the concept of early adopter comes in. The early adopter is not just any customer segment. It's the customer segment that feels the pain in the most acute way, like the most painful way. Okay, the one that has, the one that you will have less problems to sell your solution, because it's a bigger of a problem. Okay, so that's why before doing so, you should have interviews with these three types of different personas. Because you might think it's the DINKs, which is actually what I thought. And in the end, it's funny because most people, they told me it was the contrary. It was not to be sexist, I'm sorry, it's just a fact that I've, after conducting certain interviews, it was certain moms cooking for the kids. Don't enter into cultural issues, why is the mom, why is the father, it's just the fact is that statistically speaking, 80% of the time is the mom that is cooking for the kids. And they have, and the main problem for them is actually that thing, you know, planning every week, what am I going to cook for my kids? So that to me would be the early adopter, okay? Because they really have a pain, they need to cook. They want, it's not about their health, it's about their kids' health. It's about their kids' food, okay? So that sometimes it's not as obvious as it might seem. Other customer personas that we've discussed and we've conducted research with and like customer development were fitness people. That's another customer persona. Because they might have a very hard pain because in cooking, because they might be, if they want to be fit, they know that 80% of their health is the diet, and that you cannot be in shape or according to their health needs just by doing exercise or by buying you know, healthy salads. They need to do home cooking, so that's a problem for them. Another one that we thought of is vegetarians, people that they cannot eat pizza all the time because it's one of the few alternatives they can find as vegetarians, or Indian food, and they need to cook. And they don't know what to cook because it's difficult, it's not as easy, not to mention the vegans, you know. So they need to do this home cooking. Mm-hmm. So as you see, the understanding of the problem and the solution that you find will be much more different depending on those personas. Mm-hmm. So first thing, just conduct interviews with all those people. One, define persona, the customer segment. Let's go for vegetarians. I'm a vegetarian myself, and you know, I'm aware of the problem, but you know, maybe I've been a vegetarian for 6 months. Maybe, you know, when you talk to vegetarians that are, you know, there for 2 years, they already found solutions that are better than the one I'm thinking about. Then you interview 5 people. The interview questions are very important. I will tell you about it in a while. It's not just, you know, random questions. Are, you know, there's a specific methodology. Then once you found that persona, you need to define the problem. You already know the problem you want. That's why you found your persona. But you need to actually, you know, find the specific way to put it. Is it just home cooking, like having the groceries at home, and you just want to solve the cooking time, or you want to solve the planning time, or you want to solve the whole planning and cooking time? Okay, do you want to define it also incorporating the nutritional approach, or just the cooking issue? So you define the problem, and but that's after you've interviewed those 5 people, because once again, I might think that the problem is about the home cooking, but maybe I've talked to 5 people and they say, no, the reason why I don't cook is because, to me, you know, I have the time to cook. I have the time to go shopping because it's easy for me. I have a supermarket right at my door, and you know, and I don't care. It's just about cleaning the dishes. So maybe for them the real problem is the cleaning the dishes thing. You know, it might be. So once again, you define the problem after interviewing. You redefine the problem after interviewing those 5 people. Okay, then that's the customer validation, customer discovery. Once you have talked and really understood all those things and reframe the problem, then before building a product, you go to other people that fit into the same category, or even the same people, and say, okay, this is the solution I've come up with. What do you think about it? But it's very important to separate one thing with the other. I mean, it's very usual to say, oh, do you have time for home cooking? It's like, no, I don't have time. It's like, what about if I told you that, you know, I can send you the ingredients and you can build make the recipes yourself? Then I'm talking about your problem and your solution in the same interview. So in a way, I'm conditioning your answers as if you already validated the problem I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I'm you know, it's like captious questions. As a lawyer, you should know, because I'm a lawyer myself. And you know, when you interrogate a witness, you cannot ask the witness, where were you the night that you killed your husband, right? Because you're inferring the solution, or in this case the guilt, in the question. You're assuming the person killed the person. And in this case it's the same. You're assuming the problem is already there, and maybe it's not there the way you think. You see so as the same way as there's a methodology to witness interrogation, there's a way for conducting customer development questions. So
what kind of questions the entrepreneur have to ask to the customer?
The kind of questions are first thing, to make sure that the person you're interviewing fits into the customer segment you want to. That's very important. It seems obvious, but it's not. Make sure that the age, the nationality, the gender you don't have to ask. Presumably, and basically the demographic data. Just validate that. Second, you need to ask open questions. Don't give the do you think this or this? No. It's first it's how do you feel about this? Not even the problem. How do you think about the way you eat at home? Not before about home cooking. Just open question. Eat. How do you eat at home? And she will tell you, I order pizza, I make grocery shopping once a week, and I buy on the convenience store next to my place that opens late when I arrive from work, and then I go with my couple to a restaurant every, twice a week, once on weekends and once on weekday. Okay, now then you have this open question, and then you go narrow it. And it's okay, what about this home cooking thing you told me? How do you do it? Will you tell me about it? Oh, I do this. Not actually asking about the problem, just thinking about it, and without saying there's already a problem there. Okay, now when you do this, what are your main challenges that you find in that activity? Oh, well, basically, I end up, on Sunday I make the groceries, or I go on Saturdays, and basically I have no time for planning, so I just go to the supermarket and I just start buying food as I go on the alley, and then I buy things and and just cook whatever I have according to what I just bought, which is what most people do. And it's oh, interesting. Okay, so then you ask another question. So why do you have this problem on planning? Why do you have this problem on grocery shopping? Why do you have this problem about cooking? And then you start narrowing again, but open questions. And then you say, from 1 to 10, how painful is this problem for you? On your daily, the way you approach how you eat. Is it a big problem, meaning 10, a huge problem because you're diabetic and you actually, you are a person with diabetes and you actually need, no matter what, to do home cooking, so it's a real pain, or you don't actually care and it's just you just find another alternatives, and in the end you just buy some pasta and tomato sauce and get ready with it, and you don't give a damn. So once you really understood, it's okay, and what are the solutions you're currently using to solve this problem? Oh, well, since I have no time for the supermarket, I just go to this app that helps me to buy groceries. Oh, interesting. And what do you find with this app? Do you find it really solves the problem of going grocery shopping? Yes, but the problem is that I end up throwing out 20% of what I end up buying because, the portion sizes are not according to what I need for a specific recipe. So I end up throwing away a lot of, salads that I buy, or fruits or vegetables or whatever. So you start doing that, and it's an open conversation. What solutions would you think that would be cool if you could do it? Not because they should give you the solution, but at least you know their way of thinking. You understand more about it. So what price would you pay for extra if someone gave you a solution for that? Things like that. And with all that feedback, Then you come up with that, aggregated with all the interviews you had. You might come up with things that you didn't even know. You just, that most people don't buy grocery shopping online because they're never home when the grocery shopping online arrives. So they have no other option. So maybe the real problem you would be solving is that specific problem for the apps that do online shopping. You know what I'm saying? And maybe you thought there was a huge problem, and if you just solved that specific part of the problem because it was consistent along the interviews, maybe you would be solving a different problem, but finding a bigger business opportunity than you expected initially. That's why it's very good to be open in these interviews. So define the persona or the personas. Interview this 5 to 10 people for each type of persona. Then with that, redefine the problem. Then come up with a potential solution that it's what this methodology calls the qualitative validation, not the quantitative. It's not about people buying your product because you haven't created it yet. It's not about how many people visit your website. It's not about the conversion rate. No, it's still about whether they like more or less your solution. Okay, it's more qualitative. So you come up with a solution that might be like a drawing, an idea, or a mock-up that you do with a cardboard. It's not even a product yet. It's not even an MVP yet. Okay, a minimum viable product. And then you just say, okay, now what if I told you? You asked, in the second round of the interviews, what if I told you that I could give you an app where I like Netflix, where I already have your profile and your family's profile and your preferences, your allergies, your nutritional objectives, your intolerance, and the things you like and you dislike, and you like the most and you dislike the most. And what if I told you that after that, every week I would suggest 3 to 5 or as many dishes as you want, depending on your lifestyle, and the recipes would be coherent with your preferences and your family members' preferences. And what if I told you that those things, instead of just making you buy those recipes and ingredients on the grocery store, I would just send you every single day, and every single week on Tuesday night, because I heard that most people work. That's why they don't have time. So at 9 o'clock every Tuesday, I send you the boxes with the exact ingredients, with exact portions, the exact step by step as the IKEA with the furniture.
Like IKEA.
IKEA, yeah, same thing. And I send you all that, and I gave you all the nutritional information, and I gave you a nutritionist that you could ask anytime for any question. And you have no problem with cooking, and you could do them in less than 15 minutes because you told me that you don't spend more than 5-10 minutes or 15-20 minutes. What if I told you that would be like 5 to 10% more expensive than grocery shopping, because it's grocery shopping, but I just charge you 10% more, and I include that whole thing, and I send it to you as many times as you want, and you could follow your nutritional development, and even you could have that solved. Would you like it? And people might say, yeah, cool, yeah, it sounds good, or 10% it's not worth it because it's not that big of a problem. Well, then move to another customer segment whose problem would be higher, or bigger, painful, and I can tell you that he or she will be willing to pay. That's why finding the persona is very important. There's one thing called Pronocal. I don't know, you know Pronocal? It's like a diet thing. There's certain foods that they force you to eat this Pronocal weight loss treatment, or Biomanan, or these things. People that want to lose weight, they spend thousands of dollars on weight loss programs. If you told them, forget about it, just have a nutritionist, just get your food shipped, you will do it very quickly. You have no other option but to cook what I just sent you, and you will follow a diet, because every time you try to be on a diet, you put a paper on the fridge with the recipes in the program, and you never have time to follow that diet. Would you be willing to pay 10% more of your grocery list just to make sure that you put your diet on autopilot? Well, I can tell you, people would do.
I will be a customer.
Great.
No, not for
I'll send you a discount.
Yeah, because I haven't got enough time to do
Exactly.
it. Yes, yes, yes.
Well, same thing with me. I'm a parent,
yes,
and I have no time,
yes,
and
yes,
you know,
me too.
I that's why I would.
And I arrive late at home, I have to do a lot of things,
Exactly.
and if I have a box with all the elements,
Exactly.
it could be wonderful.
So
Excellent.
that's the solution, and then you say, okay, with that feedback about the solution and about the pricing, then you start thinking about that solution. It's like, would you pay on a weekly basis? Would you pay every week? Would you like to think about, like actually, paying for it, or would you rather pay, a fixed amount every week and just like what it called set and forget? Like, I just get my boxes. I know they will send me the food I like because I told them what I like. And if I want to change something specifically, I just go to the app, change the recipes, and do it.
Do you know if it exists? The solution?
Yeah.
What is the name?
It's called Food in the Box.
But in Spain?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, it's very new. But in the United States, they have what it's called a meal kit business. And it's the same, this thing, it's kits of food, of meals. And they are going, they're sending like 5 million boxes per week.
My God.
Yeah.
The logistic point, it's very important.
It is. It is. So that's that. The final thing is like repeat until you find 5 early adopters. You see this important thing of early adopters. If I send you a solution and people, they say, meh, they like it between a 5 and a 6, then they don't like it enough to be your first customers. And when you launch a new product into the market, you need to make sure you find the people that would actually love it. Because first, no one wants to be the new person that tries something completely new unless it's something super cool. But they don't want to be the guinea pigs, I think they call, like conejillos de Indias, like the cobayas. So they need to really love your product, or they need to really need your product. Okay, that's why you need to find your early adopter, not just any random customer. When they launched the iPhone, and it was a well-established company called Apple, they didn't go for my grandma. I tell you that. My grandma might have ended up buying one, but at the beginning, they needed to find the people that were, technology enthusiasts, that had a lot of money and had no time, and they heavy users of technology.
I think this is a great example in order to create a necessity. No?
Indeed, exactly.
Yes.
That's why there are very few examples of what they call disruptive innovation. But disruptive innovation, it's a whole like a whole new field of entrepreneurship where it's way too risky. You can do it, but same thing as with meal kits. The necessity of cooking, is there, but to actually change the way people eat at home, such a habit, that is disruptive. It's not something you just do smoothly and easily, it's like change people's habits. So it's very disruptive. It's not just a small innovation. That's why it's way too risky, and you can do it. And I recommend you to do it if you have this disruptive approach. But if you do so, at least follow these processes to get as much information and KPIs and data along the way, so you can lower your high risk. Okay, because it's not just making a keyboard that you just do it better. People will need to buy keyboards anyway. You just create a new way to approach a problem, and with the iPhone, of course, people needed to make phone calls, people needed to listen to music, and people needed to take pictures. But the way to put it all in one in a beautiful product that it's way too expensive and it's just it was very disruptive, and that's why they needed to find these early adopters to introduce the product. Then people, what it's called the late majority, will end up buying something because it's cool, but they're the pioneers that you need to find first. As for example, when I started this company of the babysitters one, I end up growing the service by finding the early adopter, and the early adopter was the expats, the expatriates.
Sure.
They were coming from their country. They knew no one.
Yes,
they
had
were
got network around.
Exactly.
Yes.
So those were the people, the customer segment that I built the service for, and there were thousands of them. And they normally come from countries where they are more open to trust technology and internet. Of course, we just didn't create a database of nannies. We found that every nanny was a student at a Spanish university. So we had all the data. They were interviewed. They had a video interview. They had psychological exams. Wow. They had they could actually had special skills as mathematicians or whatever, and they would build, instead of just doing babysitting, they would give you like a specific workshop to the kid on their own inner talents.
Okay.
So you would feel
wonderful.
less guilty about leaving your kids at home while you go enjoy a restaurant, right? You need to do it for your couple, with your couple, but in the end, you feel guilty for leaving your kids with a stranger. So if you know that you're also at the same time investing in their education, at the same time you're leaving them at home, then you lower the friction and you increase the trust on the person, because it's a person that has the skills, is associated with the university. If the university is a student, we have we call the university ambassadors. So the person in charge of finding those students, already knew the person, so it was a trust link.
Okay.
And all these type of mechanisms that would lower the main problem, that is the trust.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe 5 years after, a Spanish mother or a Spanish father might end up hiring that process. But in the meantime, you need to start from your early adopter. Okay. So get to know your customer. This is the best way to build this customer. It's not just, I will go to couples or divorced couples or whatever. No. What you need to do at the beginning is to actually create a character, a persona that it's called in this methodology, and you should become somehow like script writers, like movie writers. It's fiction, but it's based on people that you have in mind, and then you start changing these profiles as you talk to more people, and it's more accurate. Okay. But that's why it's very important to create a fictional image, a picture, a real name, and a profile. In this case, it was for another company that I had and that I sold 8 months ago. It was a travel company, and we built those profiles. It was a travel agency. Some travel agency somehow it was, but we called it Authentic Travel Made Easy. There were many people that wanted to travel to other countries. They didn't want to go to travel agencies. They didn't want to just hire everything on the place. They wanted to be, authentic, but at the same time to be consistent, or to trust the people and have authentic experiences, but hire those experiences from their own place. Not just going to Marrakesh and looking for, finding a guide there. That was too extreme, and there are people doing it. But the mainstream people that used to go to travel agencies, they want something more specific, more authentic, more Airbnb type. All right. So we built that platform, that tool, and we try to develop those, customer profiles, and then we did all the customer discovery, customer validation, and all that, and we end up building a platform so that you could chat with a local agent at those countries. And configure your experience from a local agent and pay from there, but at the same time just make your own adventure, make your own trip, right? And pay to a reliable party. And then we sold that company to one of the a hotel chain that wanted to compete against Airbnb. There's a typo here. It's not empath map. It's empathy map. That's another tool that complements this, this profile editing. Let me go back to the profile because I forgot to tell you. This paragraph that you see there is, well, basically you need to invent a story. For example, in this babysitting company that I was telling you about, we had one profile that is called Cecile, and we build stories like Cecile is a mom of 3 kids from Paris. Clément, her husband, was a new person that started to work at Carrefour, Spain, and they didn't know anyone. Just a few parents at their lycée français, but it was all. So they hired an intern, because they had a high salary, but the intern was only until 8 p.m. And sometimes, they needed to go to the movies and have fun or just go for a trip. But they didn't know anyone at their own neighborhood to trust someone to leave their kids. So you build a story, So then, what she does is she started to look for that in Google or Facebook and ask friends. And you build those things, and then you try to find people like Cecile. And you have Cecile's picture, you name Cecile. So every feature you think about your company is like, would this fit to Cecile? It's different than having, would this fit to our average person that is 25 to 35 years old and lives in the city, comes from another country? That's not the way to do it. You need to humanize that customer experience, okay? Because it helps a lot to understand the whole context of the person, okay? So that's one thing. Then the empathy map is this tool that basically helps you to think, okay, Cecile, what does she think and feel about this problem? What does she see? Is she seeing social networks? Is she seeing certain TV advertisement at home or not? Or, what does she, what is the pain and the gain? And well, basically, you got a better understanding. Well, then you can do the sub-segments, but I'm not getting into that because that's like way too specific. And then you can use other tools, never to build your interviews, your customer personas, but then once you've conducted 5 interviews with 5 people, you can do a whole survey, and you can use Google Forms, Typeform, or SurveyMonkey as tools to conduct other type of surveys that might give you specific information about something very specific that you need to know. For example, let's say I know the problem, I've interviewed many people, but I really need to understand something that is critical for me. How much time are you willing to spend home cooking with your kids on a weekly basis? Not on weekends, on a Wednesday night. So maybe for that I need to ask 200 parents and really to understand if they spend 10 minutes, they spend half an hour or 45 minutes, because maybe the recipes that I will include in my plan will be either super fast and super simple or more elaborated, but that require more time. So that is specific insight about my customer segments. It's a good way to just ask for a survey, but always question it. Remember this thing I was telling you before. And most importantly, the most common mistake I've seen with entrepreneurs is, they spend too much time. They fall in love too much with their own idea. I call them Gollum entrepreneurs, like my precious, my tesoro, Sure. And they never like to share it. They never like to ask people. They never like to explain it to people because they think someone will take their idea, which is very stupid, because that almost never happens.
The first thing that the entrepreneurs ask us in the law firm, say, how can I protect my idea?
Yeah, which is the stupidest question.
Yes,
in the world.
And I say it's impossible.
Yeah.
You maybe depend of the people where you go to expose your idea.
Mm-hmm.
You can sign an
NDA.
Yes, an NDA, but
it's worthless.
If you have to prove the product or your idea in the market, it's impossible.
Absolutely, and let me tell you, I've invested in a few companies, and I get a lot of people sending me, you know, it's like, I have this business idea.
You have to sign. Yeah. It's confidential.
And it's funny because, you know, every investor will tell you, is like, those people, they just send that to the trash directly.
Yes.
You know, they have a kind response. I no longer accept, I'm not interested, thank you so much, good luck with your project. But it's sent into, you know, like trash. Because a person that has not understood that ideas are the least important thing, and it's all about execution.
Yes,
execution is about people, and people, you know, is about, you know, culture, and has nothing to do with the idea itself. And the more people you tell your idea, the more feedback you will have. And even if you make it more structured, as we're seeing here, that feedback will be more accurate, you know, and it will give you more information to make the right choices. So I totally agree. Apart from the fact that from a legal point of view, ideas are not protectable for the most part, right? Yeah. Of course, patents and other utility models and stuff, but
not the ideas.
Yeah, but not the idea. So in any case, that's one of the main mistakes. But the other main mistake is, okay, I have this idea and it's great. They create a business plan of an idea they haven't confronted in the market. They have not talked to anyone. They just read a few, you know, market studies and stuff like that, which is very, you know, once again, well, let's be politically correct this time. No, it's very inefficient. Okay, so they do that, and they start, you know, they feel so comfy at their own place, you know, with their own computers, and just, you know, fantasizing about the future success of the company, that because in the end they are afraid of testing the reality of their product with the market, to go out of the building, to ask people, to show the product, to make sure that it works, to make sure they sell, even if it's, you know, even if it's not the right quality at that point. So they want to, you know, polish the axe before, you know, starting cutting the tree, but they spend too much time that they almost never end up cutting the tree, you know, which is honestly is the most common mistake I've seen. I call them wannabe entrepreneurs. They never end up becoming real entrepreneurs because they never test out their hypothesis with the reality. As Napoleon said, you know, strategy never resists the contact with the enemy. So in the end, you need to actually confront your hypothesis with the market, because in the end, it will be, you know, the most honest feedback that you will have, you know. Sure. So that's why this methodology proposes a principle that it's called the GOTB, the get out of the building. Just apply it, just get out of the building. It's a metaphorical approach. I mean, it's not just physically get out of the building only. I mean, just share your idea with everybody. Don't worry about that, and get people's feedback. You will see here just some testimonials. You know, customer development is like dancing. You only learn when you practice it. Or destroy your fear to confront customer and open your mind to learn fast. Another sentence is, there is no such thing as negative feedback. It's all about learning. You know, it was Bill Gates who said, you know, the customers that I learned the most from were the angry ones. You know, the ones that were pissed off. They were, you know, they were giving really pure, honest feedback about their project and their product. So always be, you know, listening to that feedback. No business model survives first contacts with customers. Well, he read Napoleon probably. So finally, you know, validate. It's always about validation. It's always about hypothesis and validation. Even if your hypothesis comes from your intuition, because it's you know, that initial idea, it doesn't come from anywhere. You know, it comes from your own intuition. But that's like the T0 approach. Then you need to, you know, make a lot of changes to that. Okay, and then we'll see that in the next class. Build an MVP. We'll discuss about once we made sure that we have the right problem and we really, made sure that you rephrased the problem the right way. Then we made sure that the customer persona is the one that we really want to solve the problem for. Then we came up with a solution, and it was we validated qualitatively the solution with an ideal product. So with that feedback, we made certain changes to the features that the customer wanted. Then we do the quantitative validation. Then we make sure that the best way to validate your product is how many people will buy it, or how many people will intend to buy it. And the intent to buy it is almost as valid as people buying it. Mm-hmm. Because what is the difference between a person that is going to pay and clicks on the pay button than the person that actually clicks there and actually takes the credit card and pays? It's not such a big difference. Of course, there is a difference. I analyze my funnel on conversion. There are people who go to checkout and then finally don't end up buying it because the shipping costs are high, because they get distracted or whatever. But in the end, a person that is going to click on I want it, or I want more information, or I want, there are specific and quantitative ways to say that your product really works in the market. So the MVP is the concept that these guys from Lean Startup and Customer Development approach, they came out with to say, don't build a product first. Just create a minimum viable product that, ironically speaking, is not a real product. Okay, it's just the definition of an MVP, and we'll see it after, is the experiment you need to run to validate your main hypothesis. Okay, and the experiment you need to build to validate your main hypothesis. So it could be a website with a video and just a form, or it could be like a blog, or it could be like a somehow like a fake prototype of your product that is not functional. It could be so many things that it could be. I've seen that so many times. It could be an automatic service that in the end is the entrepreneur who is manually doing it. Okay, but for the customer is automatic. It's just that from a cost perspective, an operational perspective, is the person that is actually doing it manually until make sure that it works.
But it's true that, for example, some entrepreneurs or a lot of entrepreneurs have fear if with the prototype the customer has a bad experience.
Mm-hmm. It's very common to have that fear, and it's true that it's unfortunately it's way too common to have that fear because it's a false fear. I think it was Mark Zuckerberg that that said, if you feel happy with your product, you launched it too late.
Sure.
And I think that illustrates the lean startup approach. You never, just consider the time from launching a product fairly well to launching the product very well. That time is a lot of learning that you missed in the process, and your competitors are gaining. So, and you're burning cash, you're burning time to market opportunity. So just apply this American principle once again that is called fail fast, succeed faster. Just launch it quickly, learn from it, and then implement it, and then perfect it. The Japanese people call it kaizen. Small changes, small iterations until perfection. But you start from something that is good enough, and then move from there. And it's very common to have that fear, and that's why MVP came from to say, hey, no, it's a minimum viable product. The minimum features to prove your hypothesis. Best example is I think we've discussed it, but we'll discuss it in the future, is Dropbox. They wanted to validate a hypothesis. They built a website with a video saying this is what we do, this is what it does. It was a video pretending that the product was actually working, and at the end of the video we're saying, hey, would you like this product? Just download it right now. People would go to download, and then they would say, hey, we're sorry, we're not ready yet. Just leave us your information here and we'll send you a discount or a free trial whenever we're ready. Okay. Those were people that were intended to download it, so that validated a lot of things. And actually intended it, and they actually gave their email to be notified when the product was ready, which also validated that intent. That's not a platform, that's not a coding platform, that's not an infrastructure, that's nothing. Then you get all those emails, you get some feedback from those people, and you really adapt to the product that you really want to build.
Okay.
That's the thing. So measure the results, and then we'll see in the next class how to grow. But it's not part of this class. It's the metrics for pirates. We'll see that in the next class. This example of Dropbox that I was telling you about, this watch video download Dropbox. In the end, it was a ghost product. We will see that after. So thank you very much. Extended myself 12 minutes, but I was late also at the same time. So
doesn't matter.
I hope no matters. And if there's any quick question, I will answer in 30 seconds.
No, I can't see any question here, but I don't know if my Twitter it's going well. I think because the last.
Oh, because of the.
Yes, I don't know. The hashtag is EAE conference.
Okay, but I think they haven't announced it because even there's no official announcement from.
Yes.
Anyway, so in any case, my Twitter is Emprender Cuesta, as Álvaro Cuesta, Emprender Cuesta. You can see it also on the screen to the right. So if you have any questions, especially considering that this type of seminars are mostly viewed after they're recorded. So if you made it up to here, you can ask me any questions on my Twitter account, Emprender Cuesta, and I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Álvaro. At this point, we close the meeting. Thank you very much for your participation and for your contributions. In the next few days, we will send you an email with a link so they can see the session again and another to download the presentation. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much. See you next time.